The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay. Now you're on.
I got excited. Let's call the August 5th, 2025 Local Government Commission meeting to order. Thanks everybody for being here. We do have a full agenda, and as you'll see, a number of towns and counties are represented in the audience and then online as well. And we'll hear from some of them, particularly as we get to the last section where we discuss sales tax withholding, late audits, and the appeals process there. So with that, let's go to calling the roll. Cindy, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you. Cindy Aiken, Assistant General Counsel. Welcome, everyone. Let's see. Start with Bill Toole, Designee for Secretary Marshall.
Here.
Auditor Bullock.
Here.
In the room. Secretary Wooten.
Here.
In the room. Mr. Brown.
Here.
Here. Ms. Harvey.
Here.
Thank you. Is participating virtually. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Here.
All the way from Greensboro. Nice to see you. And Mr. Stith.
Here.
Thank you. And anyone know about Mr.
He just signed online.
Burns? Mr. Burns. There he is.
I'm here.
Thank you. Also virtual today. And Treasurer Briner.
Here.
A full house. For the LGC staff today, Denise Canada, Secretary, Jennifer Wimmer, Director of Debt Management, Kendra Boyle, Director of Fiscal Management, Laura Rowe, Director of Policy and Compliance, and several assorted staff scattered in the seats. MJ and Lindy do our audio visual for us. Housekeeping items real quickly. Our meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public pursuant to the department's recording of public meetings policy. We ask that everyone please identify yourself when you are speaking, whether here in the room or online. If you are participating virtually, please keep yourself muted if you're not speaking. If we lose power or we have an AV connection issue, oftentimes actually the meeting will keep recording, but just be aware of that. If you're offline, we usually pause and try to get things straightened out. Hopefully we won't have that issue. The agenda for today's meeting is at the department's website on the LGC page. Changes to the agenda, if any, will be announced by the chair during the meeting. We'll take all votes by roll call without objection, as we've been doing. Your motions and seconds will be considered as yes votes unless you want to change your mind while we call the roll. And for those of you who are with us in the audience, please remember that the microphones are sensitive. You're welcome to step into the lobby if you need to have a conversation. And every month I remind myself to not flip my papers too loudly because it comes across on the recording. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Cindy. So you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the North Carolina flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of North Carolina and pledge to the old North State love, loyalty, and faith.
Thank you, everybody. Please take a minute to review the agenda. Commission members are reminded of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any member have an actual or potential conflict of interest with respect to any matter on the agenda?
Mr. Treasurer, the Lincoln County matter and the consent agenda.
All right, we'll pull Lincoln County off the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the minutes. The July 1st, 2025 meeting minutes were in your packet. If there are no questions or concerns, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of the minute.
Mr. Stith, second.
July 1 minutes, Stith and Brown. Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Auditor Bullock.
Aye.
Secretary Wooten.
Aye.
Mr. Burns. We'll come back. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Treasurer.
Aye.
And get Mr. Burns back. Vote on the minutes.
Can you hear me? I said aye.
Okay, we got you. Thank you. Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move over to attachment A, which is what we always provide on the OPEB report. As you see, this is all the units before us asking to borrow today, many of whom have no reserves set aside for their OPEB liabilities over and above what they have already deposited with the state. So this continues to be an issue for everybody, and most especially, of course, for the state itself. We want to continue to have a spotlight focused on this, as it is an enormous liability for everyone that we want to make sure we get ahead of. And yes, for those who are really detail oriented, we are aware that Harnett County is not Harnett County.
So we got 101 counties.
Not yet. Okay, so moving on to the UAL. We do have a unit in front of us, Maysville. And so over to Jennifer and Kendra to talk about that item.
Good afternoon. The one unit that is coming to us under the definition of a UAL financing is Maysville. They have entered into these vehicle and equipment loans prior to getting approval from the LGC that's required. So this is a compliance request before you. It's for $260,000, and that is the contract for 4 vehicle and some equipment from 2024. They are already making payments. The loan is through First Citizens at an interest rate of 5.12. Again, this contract needs to be approved by the commission, but I will turn it over to Kendra to discuss their financials.
You all have a summary in your packet of why this unit is included on the unit assistance list. It is due to late audits. They had some budget compliance issues and some untimely reconciliation issues. We did receive their fiscal year 23 audit report on May 30th of 2025. So we still do not have their fiscal year 24. That being said, I think it's important to let you all know that the unit does have a coach team member assigned to them. They have been very cooperative with that coach team member. In fact, this matter coming before you was part of when our coach team member was doing a budget to actual look at their 9 months audit, their financial information, and saw it. They right away were ready to come before you all to receive, hopefully, your blessing on this. The staff there has seemed to stabilize. They had a lot of turnover in their finance officer position, so now they do believe that they are in a good position, where they have hired a third-party accountant to help them do some cleanup and some training for staff. They're working with North Carolina League of Municipalities to implement a new software system. They're going to be doing that with the guidance of the league instead of trying to wing it, where we've heard lots of units doing that. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew those things, those improvements and things that they are efforts they are making to be in compliance. And they have scored for the unit assistance list as far as their financial health for general fund and water and sewer very well. In fact, they did not score at all based on their fiscal year 23 financial statements in those areas. They're solely now sitting on the unit assistance list for internal control issues. So I wanted you to know all that before you make your decision today.
Kudos to our coach team members in general, but specifically in this case for getting ahead of this and identifying this issue. They are really the front line of a lot of what we do, and without them, we wouldn't be aware of any of the issues, be able to address them. So thank you for that. The other thing you should know, just that has gone on, the team reached out to a number of banks to educate them on why these missing approvals may be problematic for them, not necessarily just for the municipalities, but for the banks. This essentially voids the contract if you don't have LGC approval. So we don't want to sneak up on anyone with that. That's not good for anyone. But somehow it's been lost in certain banks. So are there any questions on Maysville? I'll entertain a motion. So move. Secretary Wooten, is there a second?
Second.
Got Bill first. All right, call the roll, please.
All right, for Maysville, we have Wooten motion with a second by Tool. Alder Volek.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Burns?
I saw his mouth move.
Excuse me?
There we go.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Stiff?
Aye.
Treasurer Briner?
Aye.
Thank you all. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to attachment C, which are the financial performance indicators of concern units. Move over to Jennifer and Kendra to talk about Andrew City.
Sure. The first unit is the town of Angier. They are requesting approval for the design, construction, and equipping of a new police station. The actual costs are known and defined. It is for $7.25 million with First Bank for 20 years at a 4.5 fixed interest rate. They have requested this for expanding and improving public safety. I will turn it over to Kendra to speak about their financials.
So you have in your packet their, the unit's response to their financial performance indicators of concern. Mainly their issues are related to the significant turnover that they've had in management through the last few years. They had a finance director who left in the fall of '23. That replacement was not hired until January of '24. That person then left the unit in June of '24. And now their current finance director, who does have experience with units of local government, especially one about the size of the town of Angier, was hired in April of 2025. So you can imagine during that, all those transitions, some of the oversight that's necessary, the reconciliations that are necessary, those things kind of got off track. So now that this new finance officer has come in April, she's working to make sure that they have things on track. She's implemented a system of daily bank monitoring. She's revamped the accounts payable process. She's putting in place the things to try and resolve the issues that have been noted in their latest financial statements. We did receive the fiscal year 2024 report on April 7th of this year. So, but they have already begun preliminary audit testing for fiscal year 25. So they hope to get that in timely. And they are, they show signs of being very fiscally strong. Their issues do appear to be totally related to the significant turnover that they have had. So I wanted you to know all that.
When we see financial officers turn over so quickly, is there an ability for us to do an exit interview or anything like that to try to understand the pattern?
That's a good suggestion. I'm not sure if we have notice of them leaving, if we can arrange the exit interview, but that is something that we could put in place or
I'm mindful that we have 1,100 municipalities.
right.
Right, okay. Thank you. Any questions around Andrew? Okay, is there a motion to approve financing? Mr. Brown?
Second.
Mr. Stiff? Call the roll, please.
For the town of Angier, Mr. Brown and Mr. Stiff. Mr. Tool?
Aye.
Thank you. Alder Volek?
Aye.
Secretary Wooten?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
Treasurer Briner?
Aye.
Motion carries.
So let's move on to Elizabeth City, and we have a number of folks from Elizabeth City in the audience. Thank you for being here. 3 different items, so we'll go over to Jennifer and Kendra.
Elizabeth City has not come before the commission for a while due to financial issues and turnover issues. However, they have reached a point where we feel that these items can come before you. They do have financial performance indicators, which Kendra will get to in a moment. But I did want to go through the request for you. The first one is a $5.6 million lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management for 33 vehicles. They have an aging fleet, and this program allows them to get their fleet up to a point where they're not always paying for repairs to some vehicles that are no longer able to carry their service as they should. The second request is for an equipment lease with PNC Bank, and it is for 6.5%. And that is for the maintenance equipment. And the third request is $400,000, and it's a lead line service inventory project. This loan comes specifically from the Department of Environmental Quality, and it is to identify the lead service lines for eventual replacement for that. So those are the financings, and I will turn it over to you.
So in your packet, you have the unit's response to the financial performance indicators concern related to their fiscal year 24 audited financial statements. We have reviewed their response, and our staff found it to be acceptable. These were related to internal controls and financial reporting mainly. I think it's important for you all, in addition to the information in your packet, to know a little bit of the history on Elizabeth City. As Jennifer told you, they have not appeared before you all in quite a while. In 2020, the unit was put on our unit assistance list due to internal control concerns and some financial condition of their general fund concerns. In fiscal year 22, we issued a letter to the unit and outlined 6 areas where we would like for them to address to improve their financial condition and their compliance with internal controls. And at that time, we entered into a fiscal accountability agreement. Now, this is a unit that, as you've heard many, many times, significant turnover in key financial positions as well as management positions. In fact, since 2017, I think I have these numbers right, but they have had at least 3 city managers, 4 interim city managers, and 3 finance directors, as well as during that time period, having a good bit of turnover in their council members. So that created a good bit of instability, caused some confusion, and there were some lacking of following internal controls and getting things accomplished. In response to our letter where we're asking them to review those 6 areas, they have reached out and received assistance from third-party accounting teams as well as a financial management consultant. And since that time, they have been able to get, in the last 12 months, 3 audited financial statements to our office, which is amazing and I think is very indicative of the work that has gone into getting their financial house in order. They have also, in their general fund, they've improved their percentage of fund balance available as an expenditure, as a percentage of their expenditures, from 15.7% in 22, and where our threshold is at 25%, to where they're now in the fiscal year 24, it was up to almost 70%. So I think that they have put in a lot of measures to improve their financial stability and their compliance with internal controls and statutes. So I just wanted to provide you with that additional information before you make your decision. And I know that we do have their team here.
Kinley still fine.
Yeah, I know.
Question about, now we heard in another report that the league comes in and provides assistance. How does that work? Because I would think that during these times that there would have been an opportunity for the league. So does the municipality have to reach out to the league and say, how is that process? I don't know anything about the process, but this is one of those that seems like it would be right for the league to come in to do some assistance. How does that engagement usually work?
Right. A lot of the time, the unit is, the league is using our unit assistance list. They're seeing those units that have been identified as needing assistance and reaching out to them. Then it's a mix. Then sometimes the units are contacting the league. I think the league's work right now is focused on some of those smaller units. And also when you get too many, cooks in the kitchen, then everybody is stepping all over each other. So the Elizabeth City, took the initiative to get their own team in there. So that may have a factor as to why the league's not in Elizabeth City, but is in some of the smaller units that don't have that resource.
That's helpful. Thank you.
I have a couple questions for Elizabeth City. What are the vehicles being used for?
There'll be, with the police department, rec department, there's also the servicing the.
Excuse me, sir, would you mind identifying yourself so everyone would know?
Brian Lewis, interim finance director.
Thank you.
And this is Dave Bullock, auditor. Mr. Lewis, I understand you're the interim and there still is no permanent finance director at Elizabeth City.
Yes, sir.
What's your timetable on permanency in that position? Because I know there's been a tremendous amount of turnover.
Goodson, I'm the city manager. I was appointed February of dated. Mr. Lewis is the interim finance director, doing a good job for us. We do have that job posted. We'll start looking at the applications and them and decide 3 or 4 to interview. And hopefully we'll have that done by the end of the year.
Question for staff. I noticed that the debt management box is not checked for Elizabeth City. Can I get rationale on that?
So we usually defer to the fiscal analysis for debt management, especially if there had been some missing information over the past and not having a kind of a historical view of their practices. So we did not check that on purpose.
Because of lack of historical data or?
Right, because they had not had any debt come to us for a while. And then the amount of financial performance indicators of concern for multiple years, we wanted to make sure that those were addressed before we make a decision on that. They have not missed a payment.
It just seems to me that before we approve borrowing money from somebody on the financial assistance list, we would have sort of a credit report, which is basically.
They have not missed it.
Okay.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
They have almost those, yeah.
Right.
So that's a good place to begin.
Yeah, I saw that.
Cindy Aiken speaking. To address Auditor Bullock's question a little bit, just from the legal side.
I know it's not a credit
The
report. I got
Say
it. I know
what?
it's not technically a credit report. I
Oh,
was just,
no.
I get that.
Yeah, I was saying
I know
normally.
Anger was checked,
Yeah.
is why I asked. I mean,
So, 2 things. Normally, and your findings include one of them, that the unit's debt management procedures and policies are good, or that reasonable assurances have been given that its debt will be managed in compliance with the law. That's the finding. The other thing to say is that when I've counseled staff, and my apologies for not making it 100% clear to all of you all, and I need to get you that chart, which I failed to do. Provided a good chart for Mr. Stiff and Mr. Brown last month with the different findings. So there's one that I call it the shortcut finding. And for whatever reason, the General Assembly put in a sentence that said, you do not need to find all of those 5 or 6 factors, because it's 6 in the case of installment financing, if you conclude that the proposed project is necessary and expedient, instead of that word or. If what they want to do is not economically feasible via a bond issue, and 3, that the contract will not result in an excessive increase in their taxes. So that I call those the shortcut findings. And you'll notice that the debt question is not one of those 3. So it could go either way. But I always like to have you consider all of the findings, and there's always that debt, reasonable assurances that their debt will be managed correctly as opposed to not legally, whatever. I don't know if that was helpful or made it muddy, but.
Very helpful.
Okay.
Mr. Treasurer, I move approval.
Second.
We'll put a motion, Secretary Wooten, second from Mr. Stiff.
All right, just a moment. All right. Oh, are we doing all 3 matters? That's my other question.
Yes.
All 3. All right, all 3 Elizabeth City items, Wooten and Stiff. Okay, Mr. Toole.
Aye.
All right.
Mr. Burns? Somehow you might.
Not hear me?
Do the thumbs up at the same time.
How about now? Aye.
We got, thank you, Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Harvey,
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman,
Aye.
Treasurer Reiner.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Elizabeth City.
Okay, thank you. So let's go to the consent agenda. As a reminder, we took off which county? Lincoln County, thank you. So the consent agenda minus Lincoln County is before us. If there are any questions, concerns about any of the items on the list besides Lincoln County, let's discuss those now.
I do have a couple pieces of information. You will notice that there are 2 financings listed as the North Carolina Capital Facility Finance Agency. That agency, as board members, approved those transactions at approximately 12:45 right before this meeting. They also have to be approved by the Local Government Commission. That said, there is one piece of information that was typed incorrectly under the Montessori School of Raleigh, and it's the term of, it says 20 years, but it's 15 years. So I did want to make that note. It was approved by the agency at 15 years, so I just wanted to update that. If you have any other questions about the consent agenda items, I'd be happy to answer.
I had a quick question on the Durham Housing Authority Biggs Avenue project, the amount not to exceed 22.5, but then in the notes, it says a construction loan with First Citizens Bank not to exceed 25 million. Just as kind of a point of order, which
So, right.
make sure we didn't have an error there.
So the, it should be the 22.5. Sometimes the bank does allow for a little bit of extra cushion depending on what the loan is. However, the amount that we are approving matches up with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency's allocation for the tax exemption. So that's 22.5.
Anything else on the consent agenda? Any other questions, concerns?
I'll make a motion to move the consent agenda.
Very good.
Brown and Stiff,
Stiff.
consent
Right.
agenda minus Lincoln.
Yes, minus Lincoln, and with the the agency's Montessori matter with the 15-year term correction. All right, Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Auditor Bullock,
Aye.
Secretary Wooten,
Aye.
Mr. Burns. Thumbs up, aye. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
And Treasurer Breimer?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, let's move to the Lincoln County matter. I don't know that we need any explanation, or unless there are any specific questions on Lincoln County. Okay,
Motion to approve.
Mr. Stith, motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Secretary Wooten, second. Roll, please.
Stith Wooten for Lincoln County, and we have Ms. Harvey will recuse. Mr. Toole,
Aye.
Auditor Bullock,
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman,
Aye.
and Treasurer Breimer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So the next item on the agenda is actually the very last page of attachment D, and this is not an action item, so we don't need a vote, but just to highlight it, Bryson City is doing a refinancing, saving themselves some money. This is a notice under our new policy to allow units to go ahead and refinance for interest savings only purposes without getting prior approval, but then notifying us if this is that notification. I hope we see a lot more of these because it's great for all our towns and counties if they can pull this off, but wanted to raise that with you guys. So with that, let's move on to the largest number of pages, which is a goal in and of itself to get smaller. Attachment E, which is the unit appeals to notices of noncompliance. We'll turn it over to Laura and Denise for the presentation here.
Laura's gonna go through. Great. Good afternoon, Commission members. Thank you, Treasurer. I'm Laura Rowe, Director of Policy and Compliance, and I'll go over the information that is in that large attachment E today. Documents in that attachment outline the notice of compliance process that we are undergoing for calendar year 2025. That process with issuing a notice, the appeals, and the sales tax withholding was enacted in statute back in 2023. So this is the second year that our office is implementing it. And to provide some background on that process, this is not an item that you see at all of your meetings. It really focuses on counties and municipalities and looks at those units that do not timely file the required audit report. So for this calendar year 2025, we're looking back to see, has the 2024 fiscal year audit report been filed? The fiscal year end for all counties and municipalities is June 30th. And with this process, it does a couple of things. One, it requires our office to issue a notice of noncompliance to each county and municipality that does not file the required audit report within 9 months after that fiscal year end. That fiscal year end from June 30th, that comes to the end of March. In addition to that, if 12 months passes and that fiscal year end audit report is still not filed, statute says that those units are deemed to have consented to the withholding of a portion of their sales tax. And so in this process, there's sort of two key dates that we kind of build it upon. Come the end of March, that 9-month period after fiscal year end, if those units that don't file that audit report, come April 1st, that's when we're generating our sort of master noncompliance list. And that's the list that we will focus on and use for that period and that we're using this year. This year we had 118 units on that list that actually received that notice. As compared to last year, we had 135 who had to receive a notice. So in that regard, we did do a little bit better, at least at that stage. In the notices, I'll show a copy here. So this year we sent them using yellow paper in a yellow envelope, really to try to get the unit's attention that this is something that you wanted to pay attention to and really act upon. Within the notice, we ask the units to act or to provide a response by June 30th. That is another key date in this process. So June 30th is 12 months after last fiscal year end. And like I said, if we don't get that audit report in by that date, at that point, they're deemed to have consented to withholding. So we really requested units to take action. Ideally, it would be to get that fiscal year 2024 audit report in. But if they knew they weren't going to be able to achieve that, alternatively, we encourage them to file an appeal with our office for the LGC's consideration. And so that's what we've been doing since issuing the notices. They actually went out from our office on April 21st. They're required to go out to the primary mailing address of the unit, but then our office, as a courtesy, sent emails out to the governing board members and finance officers if we had their emails on file or were able to obtain them. Coach staff were very helpful in reaching out to units that they work with or that fell within their region to try to get some contact information. And so we tried to communicate this information a couple of different ways. I would note that even though we requested the units to take action by June 30th, and that's really before the secretary would take action to initiate withholding, the statute does permit them to file appeals afterwards. But in this, for this go around, we did get responses from all the units. That's great. That actually didn't happen last year. We had a few units that did not respond. And so we were happy about that. So with respect to the numbers themselves and what we're looking at with what was issued, you'll find some information in that first page of attachment E, sort of the overview page. So of the 118 units, the audit statuses are kind of broken down under that first bullet. So for those that received a notice, 78 of them were only missing fiscal year 24. Great. 25 units were missing 2 fiscal years. We had 13 units who were missing 3, going back to 22, 23, 24. And then we had 1 each missing 4 years and 1 missing 5 years of audits. And that was as of April 1st when that master list was generated. I would note there'll be a couple of updates to this summary that I think we'll issue for the September meeting. One of them is that the unit that was missing 5 fiscal years, they actually got the fiscal year 20 audit in. So we now have 2 units that are at 4 years missing. So we did get some, a little bit of progress made there. I would also note that in a different context, we're not doing as well as we were last year. This year, we have 13 units who are missing 3 fiscal years on that April 1st date. Last year, we only had two units that were missing. And so in that context, we had a little bit of a drop with respect to the statuses of the units that we're working with. So going to the top of page 2 in that summary, so that's kind of where we started, like I said, on April 1st. There's some notations that has a date of as of Friday, July 25th. Well, we have a lot of updates since then, and so as of August 5th this morning, we have some more progress that is being made. So as of this morning, we actually have 55 units that have gotten their fiscal year 2024 audit in, and so now they are current. We have 36 units that have filed a paragraph 1 appeal, and that is a combination of some units that were only missing 1, they actually got their unit in, and then we had some units that were missing 2 years that were able to get an audit in, and so now they've improved and moved up into that paragraph 1 successful appeal category. And then we've reduced the number of units that had to file an appeal based on other good cause by 2, so we're down to 26 there. And I would note that there was a unit that was noted as not having responded yet to the notice of noncompliance, but they have since responded, and they did that by actually filing the 2024 report. And so they're now compliant and actually have responded there. Are there any questions on what those numbers are looking like, or what this process is looking like as we're implementing?
It might be useful to remind everyone on the commission how many units are currently having sales tax withheld, how much can be withheld.
Sure. So right now we have 4 units that are having sales tax withheld. And that was based on action that was taken last year. 1 unit has reached their max, and so they're no longer having sales tax withheld monthly, but they've reached that cumulative total, and that will continue to be withheld until the fiscal year 23 audit is submitted by that unit. The amount of withholding, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it's a statutory calculation that is based on what the fiscal year 2025 budget was last year, and then it's the monthly withholding is based on the budget, and then the cumulative withholding is derived from the cost of the last audit that was actually filed. And so those monthly amounts and then the cumulative maximum is calculated using those pieces of information. And that's what we convey to the Department of Revenue, and then actually processes those withholdings for us.
I believe it's Laura's right, I believe it's 150% of the cost of the audit.
Roughly how much?
I mean, depends on the cost, you know.
Right, but an audit costs in the order of what, 15 grand,
No, I would say significantly more than that.
100 grand?
I might actually have that. I might have that.
The size of the
I mean,
unit, we have some
we don't want to
units
say that, but
Well,
the Wake
it's-
County audit versus the town of Speed audit, it's,
Sure, but there's a back of the envelope. You can get a reliable range without being
We
precise.
definitely have those numbers.
Yeah.
we can follow up with you on them. I'm thinking maybe 75, something like that.
So basically, my memory was, our expectation was you wouldn't be holding back more than about 150 grand per unit, in that range.
Right.
And then it's withheld, 1, until the audit is submitted, or 2 years after notice is given to the Department of Revenue. So after that time, even if the audit isn't submitted, those funds are ultimately released after that time.
And I'm sorry if this is Ms. Harvey. I'm sorry if I missed this in the materials, but are any of the municipalities who are requesting appeals this year the same ones that we saw last year requesting appeals? And if so, have they made any progress in getting their audits in on time?
They have, so yes, there are some units that appealed last year that are also appealing this year. And there are some units that have made progress, that they're not missing maybe as many units or many audits as they were last year. However, we do have a number of units that, for whatever reason, have not been able to make progress. And so we are seeing their appeal again this year. And those really fall into the category of missing 2 or more audits. And those are actually going to be addressed in a lot more detail at the September meeting. But yes, to answer your question, we do have units that are in that category, filing both years, but some have made progress and some have not.
Okay, helpful, thank you.
To add on to what Laura said, we encourage every single unit that gets a notice of noncompliance to appeal the withholding. And there are a few reasons for that. One is that it's helpful for you as members to have the context in making a decision about the appeals. And the second is that it's very helpful for our staff and for you to understand what's happening across the state, to understand the context and understand what are the challenges that units are facing. And you'll hear much more in September about this, but we see a lot of the same information, a lot of the same rationale in these letters. And so I say that to let you know that because we encourage every single unit to appeal, yes, many, many of these units, in fact, are units that appealed last year. Last year, there were 100 and I think Laura said 35, something like that. This year, there are 118. In general, there are very few units that are getting a notice this year for the first time that were not behind last year. There aren't many people who were on track and have fallen off of the track since that time. So it is a big overlap. And to add on to something else that Laura said, what you're being asked to do today after we finish giving you this general overview of the process and of the legislation is that, as we said in the packet, you're being asked to consider the units that are missing only one audit, that are missing only the 2024 audit. And based on guidelines, jump ahead, I know Laura's going to get to this, but based on guidelines that the commission adopted last year, an audit is deemed, an appeal is deemed successful if a unit is only missing one audit. And basically what that means is under the guidelines adopted last year, you more or less will approve, it is expected that you will approve all of the appeals from units that are only missing 1 year. And it's the folks that are missing 2 years, 3 years, 4 years that I think we're going to have much harder and more involved conversations about. And especially on those, I know as Laura has been going through each unit individually, we have been looking at who's gotten better, who has gotten worse. Were you missing 3 audits last year and now you're only missing 2? That's good. If you were missing 3 that's better, I should say. If you're missing 3 last year and you're still missing 3, it means you've gotten 1 in, but you're not actually gaining any ground. And those are definitely the types of things that we're looking at, we're concerned about, we know you're concerned about, and you'll hear a lot more about in September. Thanks.
Yes, thanks Denise, and that really dovetail right into the next segment here, which is the appeals categories. And so Denise referenced the resolution that was adopted back in November 2024. So in that resolution, the LGC really created 2 categories of appeals. One is the category for a successful appeal, meaning that the unit is only missing the 2024 audit, which is what we're looking for your action on today. The other category is really those units that are missing 2+ years that would need to appeal based on other good cause with evidence. So kind of with that background, we can turn to the actual resolution itself and look at that wording. And I actually have some updates, some happy updates to this resolution to note for the members. So page 3 lists those units that are only missing the fiscal year 2024 audit report, and they are units that actually took action to file an appeal. Now, because these units don't have that audit report in by June 30th, we're past that date, they would be considered to have, or deemed to have consented to have a portion of their sales tax withheld. But because they appealed and they meet that criteria, they're on this list to have their appeal effectuated as being successful under this resolution. So that's what we have for you today. What I would note are the changes to that table on page 3 that lists the units that are going to, that this resolution will apply to. The town of Magnolia, the town of Banksboro, and the town of Waynesville did get their fiscal year 2024 audit in since this resolution was drafted. And so we would look to take those units off in the final resolution. Because they got their audit in, they don't need to have an appeal active. I would also note that you'll see that there are units that have the subscript 1 or the superscript 1 next to them, And down in the footnote, you'll see that those are units that improved their position since April 1st. These units were at that time missing 2 fiscal year audits, and they have since been able to get fiscal year 2023 in. So now they're only missing 1 audit, and they would then qualify to have this successful appeal applied and to be on this list. So we have seen progress made during this process. And finally, it's mentioned in the resolution, but the LGC guidelines provided that units that meet the guideline for successful appeal don't have to come before the commission. They don't have to appear. The statute would otherwise call for that. And so these units were not requested to attend this meeting. But if you have any questions on the materials that were provided, we'd be happy to try to answer them. The bulk of the attachment E materials were the actual appeal letters that these units provided. It was really being provided for your information because it doesn't call for substantive discussion by the commission members, but we thought it was important that you saw those appeals and what the units are saying, particularly with respect to why the unit is late and what their plan is for getting the audit in. And we do call for, in the resolution, that the commission expects them to do what is necessary to get these audits in as soon as possible here.
I can add on to that last point what Laura said about the resolution. You'll see on the second page of the resolution at the top, some comments in the resolution emphasizing the importance of getting the audit in. So I want to say that even though this list of 37, which we've just dropped to 34 units, they're only missing 1 audit. It's considered a successful appeal, but that's shouldn't be taken by any of these units as an indication that things are fine. Things are not fine. The fiscal year ended 13 months ago at this point, and we still don't have the audited financial statements. So certainly doing this within the LGC guidelines, but just want to emphasize to any of those units listening, certainly expect to see those audits come in short order. And as you know, our staff is here to work with units as much as we can within the guidelines, statutory guidelines. Thanks.
Timmy, do you want to add something?
Yes, if the members still have a question about what the total amount withheld for last year's, after some digging, I've pulled it up, so if you want to know.
Sure.
Okay, so it's 4 towns, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of them was the grand total of $6,525. And again, this is 150% of the cost of the audit. So that's one town, $6,500. One was $22,800, and the other 2 coincidentally came out to be the same, $9,000 even. So it's just going to depend on how much they pay for one. And one, you said one has already reached the max, and that was one of the $9,000 one. Next month, another one will have reached the max. That helps.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. We have a resolution in front of us as amended, 34 instead of 37. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Stiff, is there a second?
Second.
Secretary Wood. Call the roll, please.
And Secretary Wooten, I was actually going to say, you're comfortable that this one doesn't deal with the withholding, so I just wanted to, you're good. Okay, Secretary Wooten for the late audit successful appeals resolution. So Mr. Toole.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Auditor Bowen.
Aye.
Mr. Burns? It's a thumbs up, aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Harvey?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
Treasurer Briner?
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Sure, one more thing to point out to the commission is, if you look at the document that Laura was talking from originally, that has the numbers of units that are missing and the different audits that are missing in the different lists, and you look on page 5 of that, Exhibit 1, that's a list of 51 units that got the audit submitted since the notice of non-compliance went out. And as Laura mentioned to you, since these were printed, that actually has gone up to 55 units. So just call your attention to that list. We're glad that these folks responded by getting the audit in. Certainly some of them would have gotten it in anyway, perhaps some might not have, but always happy to see folks getting caught up. So commending these towns for being caught up in their audit, and especially to call out the town of Rhonda, which since the yellow notices were sent out in the yellow envelope, has gotten 2 audits in and is now caught up. So nice work by the town of Rhonda.
And nice work by our team. Thank you all for your attention to detail here. It's a tremendous number of entities and a lot going on. So thank you for getting so many off the list. Let's look forward to doing that even more so next year.
May I ask, is the local government commission, the League of Municipalities effort, is that paying off? It looks like it is, but has that been I don't want to say game changer, but is that a big push in the right direction?
Certainly, we're happy to have them out there working with these individual units in a capacity that maybe no one else was working before. And I think that for some of the towns individually that they have worked with, it has been a game changer. The question is really the scale and the scope of the problem, the number of folks that they have, and given the amount of intense direct work it can take to get a particular unit up to speed and the size of their staff, it can't be the only solution, but I do think that it is helping, sure.
So the issue in terms of helping these so the way I read most of these things is they've had a lot of staff turnover and they can't get an auditor. Okay. And I mean, is that basically?
They've had a lot of staff turnover. They've had auditor turnover in some cases. In some cases, they have had the implementation of a financial system which didn't go smoothly, and that's something that we have heard about repeatedly. I'm trying to think what else. One thing I know that we're looking at pulling together for you for September are.
But that third case is kind of a fall away third. The top 2 reasons I read were staff turnover and auditor procurement issues.
Sure.
So I guess the question is that I've got is, it sounds like it's a problem of getting enough qualified people available, and it's a scale issue on the on the supply side, right?
You mean people available at the league or in the units?
Ultimately to the units, but the league is just kind of an interim measure to get them caught up.
I think we all know there aren't enough qualified finance officers. As Treasurer Briner just said, 1,100 units. I don't think anyone believes there are 1,100 qualified finance officers in this. And so, right, there's a shortage of folks. Some governing boards struggle with being willing to pay the amount that it takes to bring in a qualified finance officer, especially when you look at the competition. And I think that's one thing for this body to grapple with. What can we do to help units succeed in this time where there are not enough finance officers for every unit and not enough auditors for every unit? So there are alternatives that we in this body and the legislature can look at to.
So as we do our thinking, it occurs to me, again, I'm reading letters, but it occurs to me there's a number of smaller communities that probably don't need a full-time person, would be my hunch. And if there's a way to pool assets, and again, maybe what we would benefit from, so we could talk to policymakers, is identify score by size or I don't know if it's by population or revenues, but the size and need, and then say, look, there may be ways to pool assets that make this possible. Because right now, we don't want them to come on our list. They probably don't want to come on the list. the financial cost of having some withholding, not that great, negligible. So it's really, what can we do? That's not the solution. Anyway, a longer term conversation.
It is, and one that we've had over and over again.
Endlessly, yes, I'm sure.
How can we be more pragmatic, meet these municipalities where they are without sacrificing the diligence that this body has done wonderfully for the state for a long, long time? It's the question that you're raising, and an existential question for this body that we're wrestling with. The inability for small towns to share finance officers is a real problem. It seems like an obvious way to create capacity, but we cannot do that.
Not yet. Yeah.
So hopefully we can address that problem. Generically speaking, the LGC has essentially three tools. We obviously approve debt, we do that all the time. We just talked about withholding sales tax. It is a good tool to have. It doesn't really change behavior. It's more embarrassing than it is inconvenient. And then we have the absolute hammer that we never want to use, and that's dechartering communities. That's it. Those are the three sticks we have. So hopefully we can use more carrots to get people to where they need to be. But I think all of this needs to be looked at to get to better outcomes. We can't have 110, 120, 130 units who are either willfully or inadvertently ignoring us.
How have those conversations gone? Because previous role I dealt with 58 units, not 1,100 units. But in particular in our rural communities, while no one wants to be embarrassed, no one wants to be on the list, but it's a workforce issue. The pipeline just isn't there as you're articulating. So is it in our scope from a policy point of view to say, look, we need a regional back office for these smaller municipalities or counties, because as much as they search for them, they're not going to find, they're going to go to Greensboro to work. They're not going into, I'm a down east guy. They're not going. Some folks, we're just not going to attract them down east. But we could have a central back office that takes care of whatever 20 rural areas, so that we don't. I mean, because we're going to have to end this pipeline regardless of how much they don't want to be on the list. They'll end up on the list. So how are folks open to that?
No, I think that is part of the conversation, and that piece people are very open to. That makes a tremendous amount of sense to the extent that you can make sure that they are bonded in the appropriate way and they are competent. But there are so many other pieces around it that you want to make sure that you have a thoughtful and inclusive conversation on. One of those topics is whether the full scope of audit is really necessary at the very smallest levels. I generally am skeptical of watering down standards in every walk of life, and same with this. Can we help people achieve those standards? Maybe there are other ways to do that. So I think you want to have a comprehensive conversation and come with a full package of reforms rather than just attacking them.
I think what I would add to that is it's time for us to look at what do we need, what information does this body need to monitor the financial health of units? And is it a full audit for a unit whose annual budget is under $100,000? Do they need the same level of audit that Mecklenburg County does? My sense is probably no. But what information do they need to provide so that their citizens and this body can be sure that things are being financially managed in a responsible way? But as Treasurer Brinder said, this is part of a larger discussion that I think we are going to be grappling with throughout the Treasurer's administration. There are a lot of different angles to this. There's certainly the workforce issue at the local level. There's the workforce issue at the audit level. We have financial and regulatory statutes that govern the actions of these units that have not been updated since 1971. And I think the Treasurer has heard me say a few times, you can go around and you can just sprinkle the word electronic throughout the statutes, but it doesn't actually update them to the way banking has changed since before ATMs were ever invented. So there's a lot, and it's not something to look at piecemeal necessarily. It's something to look at in a more comprehensive approach, and that's something that our staff is starting to look at. I think I'll maybe leave it there.
Isn't there an association of county commissioners.
Have you heard of it?
You know, so I'm wondering if you're.
They joined.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're listening
I
as well.
So I'm just thinking if we have that, because we want them to know
Absolutely.
kind of what the extent of the problem is. So if you at least address kind of what we're seeing to them, we can depend on that leadership, one, to at least start having a conversation with their members so maybe that's.
And those are happening, and those conversations are happening, and in fact, I have heard at it because I did work there. Until very recently. But I think I can say, I won't speak for those groups based on my conversations with them. The league, the association, Government Finance Officers Association are all very interested in coming to the table, as we say, to come up with systemic changes to make local government finance work in this state, because it's in a precarious condition, as you see every month when you sit here and hear about some of the financial performance indicators of concern. It's a lot isn't working, and I think that there are things that this body can do to help make it work better.
And one of them is to the extent we can, destigmatize consolidation. Right? If it is proving too difficult for a municipality of small scale to manage all these affairs, we are happy to try to facilitate consolidation with their neighbors or their counties or whatever makes sense. But right now, it is very rare for someone to willingly do that. Okay, thank you. Really, thank you. Okay, anything else on anyone's mind?
Again, I would add, Laura will be back in September with as I mentioned, with the 2, 3, 4-year audits, and we're doing our best to get you those materials out in advance. Those appeals letters are a bit more involved. The circumstances in those jurisdictions are a bit more involved. So those will be ones where we will have a staff recommendation for you about granting the appeal or not. Certainly, it's only the staff recommendation, and you'll be making a decision about each one of those units. I think that when I last looked, there were 28. I think that number may have gone down as folks have gotten their audits in. So, in a perfect world, there will be none by the time we get to the September meeting. That's not going to be the case. So we'll discuss those units with you then. Thanks. No, I'm good.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Stiff, second, Secretary Wooten, call the roll, please.
And speaking of September, just a reminder, we changed the date to September 9th. Yay, okay. Okay. Was it Stiff and Wooten? All right. Auditor Bolick.
Aye.
And Mr. Burns. And I skipped Mr. Toole.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
And Treasurer.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Who do I think this about?